So in this video, I wanted to discuss the new PvP system in Final Fantasy XIV. Just going to give a basic overview and then discuss some strategies and possibly record myself playing a match. So the first thing is just to access PvP, you just go to your Grand Company's headquarters, you get a quest called Pup No More, and then you're asked to go to the Wolves Den. And to get there, you're going to go to Morabee Dry Docks. I believe that's in lower. Yep, Morabee Dry Docks is here. You take this bait and then you get to the Wolves Den. Once you're at the Wolves Den, there's an Aetherite, so I'm just going to teleport there as I talk. And all you have to do is talk to a couple NPCs at the Wolves Den once you get there, and then you can queue for PvP from the Duty Finder. So the main rewards from PvP are something called PvP rank, and there's also equipment available. So once you're in the Wolves Den, I'll show you some of the equipment. PvP rank is something that as you win or lose matches, you get experience points which you can level up through, and I'll show you that right here. So as you can see, you have an experience bar and a rank. Leveling up gives you access to new abilities. The first ability you want to unlock is this Purify skill. It lets you remove a crowd control effect. So also, as you win and lose matches, you get wolf marks. They're available in currency, and you can use those to buy equipment. So there's two tiers of gear you can buy. One is the Warwolf set, and it's 1250 to 2750 in terms of cost. And all PvP gear has this stat called Morale. I'll discuss that in a second. And there's also a level 90 set. So the sets themselves are quite expensive. You can see they go up to 8,000 a piece, and I think the weapons are 8,000 too. They might even be more expensive. I'm not quite sure. 8,000. So the point is, though, that these PvP pieces have morale, which increases the amount of damage you do to other players, and also decreases the amount of damage you take from players. And it's tuned very high to the point where item level 90 PvE gear is about equivalent to level 55 crafted PvP gear. So I'll show you what I mean by that. You can get this wolf set, and it actually seems to be better than Darklight just from the morale, especially in the jewelry slots, because the stats between this and Darklight in terms of dexterity and critical hit rate, not much different from Darklight, but you get that extra morale. So you want to switch this over as soon as you can. And the rewards from winning a match determine how much experience you get. If you win, you get 50 to 60 marks and 30 to 40 experience. If you lose, you only get about 10 of each. So, if you win matches, you get rewards at 5 to 6 times the rate. So it's definitely quite useful to win matches. So what I want to discuss next is, when it comes to winning matches, you have to consider that you could either go in solo or with a pre-made group. I've done primarily solo queuing, and it's very tough to win more than half your matches. I would consider that good. If you're winning at least half of your matches as a pickup, you're doing pretty well. And the reason for that is a lot of people will queue with 2 to 3 players, and they'll get put against teams that are all pickups. So rather than, if you group with all 4 players, you're much more likely to run into another pre-made of 4 players. So what people are doing is getting groups of 3 with a good healer, a warrior, and a knowledgeable DPS, and then they're queuing together, and that way they're getting the low competition pickup groups while still having good character classes. And what I mean by that is, if there's 2 scenarios that really can ruin your game, and that is, if you don't have a warrior, warriors are much better than paladins in PvP. It's not my opinion, it's a fact. They have Storm's Eye, which reduces healing by 50%. It's like Mortal Strike from World of Warcraft, if you're familiar with that. And warriors also get, they're good stun on 30 seconds. I think paladins get a stun too, so I'm not considering that an advantage. But warriors also get Home Gang, which roots and draws in a character for 6 seconds. So between their Mortal Strike ability, their Chain ability, and their stun, warriors are just, a great PvP class. They also do a lot more damage than a paladin if the warrior is skilled. So, I mean, a good paladin might be better than a bad warrior. I'm not going to say that paladins can't do fine. It's just that warriors are much better. Another problem is you'll wind up in a pickup group with, like, occasionally finding a healer that just is wearing artifact armor, and not the eye level 90 AF 1.5 stuff. I'm talking about, like, they have just plain level 50 gear, or level 40 leveling gear, and they get killed in a second or two, and there's really nothing you can do about that. It's practically an instant loss. The only time you win is if your team is able to, if the other team doesn't think to focus your healer. So these are just, you know, some of the downsides to solo queuing. And as I'm talking to this, let's talk about some. That's my general opinion on the rewards, which are good. Wear them over PvE gear if you can. And, you know, queue with a group of 2 or 3 if you want to win a lot. Because if you're doing it solo, you're not going to do very well, no matter how good of a player you are. Especially if you're like a bard. I have limited crowd control. Like a black mage or a really skilled white mage is going to have a little bit more success solo queuing because they can contribute more to the group. So the question is going to be whether or not you want to save for the item level 90 things, or if you want to buy the item level 70 things. You can't equip any of this equipment until you reach PvP rank of 30, which is going to require about 500 wins. Whereas this gear is about a fourth of the cost, and you can equip it right away. So it's actually, I would say it depends. If you have a good group and you're winning a lot, you can save. But if you're queuing solo, you might want to spend, and that's just because if you have good gear, you're going to win more often, which means you're going to earn points faster. So these might actually pay for themselves. At a bare minimum, you can buy this Werewolf ring because you can only have one Direwolf ring, so this is still best in slot. You know, eventually I'd replace the Hero's ring with the Direwolf ring if I did that much PvP to get to rank 30, which probably will not do anytime soon. So it's a lot of playing. So let's talk about some actual PvP strategies. So first thing is crowd control is very strong in Final Fantasy XIV. Sleep lasts for 30 seconds. There's lots of classes with stuns and knockdowns. And even bind is particularly strong for an MMO. If I bind a character, not only are they bound in place, but they can't rotate. So I can't, you know, pivot. Like in World of Warcraft, if you were rooted, you could still spin and cast from here, but here you're actually stuck the direction you're pointing. So if you bind a melee, they're completely useless. And if you bind a caster or healer, if they're not pointing the right direction, they can't cast a heal. It's quite strong, so consider that. Classes that can pull from Conjurer need to have Asuna bound to their hotbars. It allows you to dispel sleep, so it's so strong if you use it. If you don't, it's a big disadvantage. So another thing I wanted to discuss about general strategy is line of sight. Let's say we're in a map like this, and I'm attacking this Chocobo here, or if the Chocobo is attacking me, and let's say he's a caster, he's casting spells. If I hide behind the pillar, he can't see me. I could easily go back and forth shooting him and going back, and he can never land a cast on me. So it's good to know that you can kite someone around a pillar to break up damage if your healer is being crowd controlled, or if you're a healer yourself. But where players, DPS classes in particular, get in trouble is, let's say this Moogle is my healer, and I'm being attacked, and I'm running, and the healer's trying to cast, and I go behind the Aetheryte. That's going to break their casting heal. So if I go out of line of sight of my healer, I will, you know, lose my ability to be healed. So it's something you want to pay attention to. A good idea is to actually mark your healer in your group with a sign so that you can easily see where they are at any time so you don't break line of sight. And you can also use this to your advantage when, if an enemy DPS class has broken line of sight with their healer, you can just trap them back here with, you know, bind, stun, home gang, and just turn and blow them up really quick. It actually works quite well. Even melee classes like monks and dragoons, or not dragoons, what are they called? Yeah, they're called dragoons, and they're pretty weak. They're weak when every class is weak when not getting healed. Let's just put it that way. So if you can trap someone out of LOS, it works well. So the big question for most PvP teams is who to focus first. And there's a lot of people will say to focus the healer and blow the healer up first, which I think is, for the most part, a bad strategy. And the reason is, if the healer's good and well geared, it takes a long time to kill a healer. Additionally, if the healer's good and well geared, it not only is it hard to kill them, but you're leaving the rest of their team open to attack you while you're focusing the healer. Instead, I find it's a lot easier to crowd control the healer and kill the DPS first. And if you're only worried about controlling one healer, you can easily keep them locked down with your whole team. I've got a bind, the black mage might have a sleep, someone else may have a stun or a knockback. You can keep them locked down over the course of the match. And you only need them locked down for 20 seconds to kill 2 DPS classes. So that's what I like to do. And the other advantage of focusing the healer is that, or focusing a DPS, is that when you focus a DPS class, you're actually controlling them in a way. And the reason is that if you're targeting a caster, of course they're not going to be able to cast, but if you're targeting any other class, they're going to be very limited. Let's say you're attacking a monk that's on your healer, and your healer kites behind a wall out of LOS of the healer. The monk either can follow you and can follow the healer and die, or pull back and wait to get healed up. Either way, the monk isn't doing anything while being focused. And it goes for any DPS class. If you focus a DPS class, they're very limited in what they can do, especially if you're controlling the healer even just a little bit. Some teams like to split DPS. They'll put the tank on the healer and ask the 2 DPS classes to focus another class. This works okay, but I don't think it's ideal, especially if you have a warrior, because I'd rather have the minus 50% healing debuff on the DPS class and use the CC effect to interrupt the healer's heals. I don't really think putting the warrior on the healer full time makes a lot of sense if you have crowd control effects for the healer. But if you have 0 crowd control and just have a really bad group composition, for example, let's say you're tank, healer, monk, dragoon. So if you have those classes, you're not going to be very good at, you have no crowd control. I mean, the healer could theoretically sleep, but that's all you got. Let's say they're focusing your healer, and let's say they also have a black mage. So you can't CC anyone, yet you have to focus the black mage, because you just have to kill a black mage first, no matter what group you're in. They're just too strong when left alone. If you focus them, they're really limited in their ability to sleep, and they're also not able to do any damage. So in this situation, you might want to put the warrior on the healer to help break up heals, and let your 2 DPS classes just focus the black mage. So now I'm going to queue for a match, and like I said, I might not win. 50-50 as far as I'm concerned, because I'm going to queue solo, and I'm bored, so I don't really have a huge impact on the match. It's really just the luck of the draw here. And so while I'm queued, I'm going to discuss a couple more tips. It's really helpful if you're using group to have some sort of voice communication software, Ventrilo, Mumble, TeamSpeak. It just allows you to communicate well in PvP. So like if you want to switch targets, if a certain mage or if somebody you're trying to control breaks their CC and you need backup control, it's just good to know. If you want to switch, it's just essential. Another tip is to use player marks. And like I had mentioned earlier, you want to mark your healer in your group, but you should also try to mark high threat targets, and you should use the numbering system. So what I mean by that is, rather than put like an X or a circle on somebody, use 1, 2, 3, 4, and 1 being like the black mage, and 4 being like the healer if you want to CC the healer, or 4 being the tank because you're never going to focus the tank first, and then 3 being the healer and 2 being the other DPS. Whatever the order you want to kill the players in, you're going to want to number them. So another thing you have to watch out for is resurrection. And that's because if you kill a DPS first, the enemy healer is going to be able to use swift cast and cast an instant resurrection. But when people res, they only have 10% health left. So what you want to do is as soon as you kill the first DPS, if you jump on the healer's going to be worried about kiting and breaking up DPS. That way, when the DPS finally accepts the res, they're not going to be able to get healed easily up to full. So as soon as they accept the res, you need to have a person watching that DPS to attack them the second they pop. You know, even like as a bard in particular, it's a good job for a bard to have because they're ranged. So you can keep an eye on the resurrection player and just use Bloodletter and Misery's End or Heavy Shot Misery's End. So this guy's insisting that we target the healer. And, I mean, in a pickup group, you're going to run into that. I'll just follow along because being uncoordinated is not going to help anybody. But I don't like it. So let's see what kind of gear these guys have. I mean, this guy's pretty well geared at this point. He's been doing a lot of PvP. So if Nubak, make sure you don't target a random DPS. I don't even know. This makes no sense to me because if the bards do a lot of damage, we should focus them, not focus the white mage and ignore the bard. What does that mean? Yeah, all these people. Oh, that's the same guy. Might be the worst geared person in this run. No, I've got a little bit more PvP gear in this person. Okay, so pretty good team. I'm not even gonna bother. Okay, so I guess we're killing this guy, even though that looks like a black mage to me. So to get sleep, you can bind. I like black mages that stand here, and I will use blood for blood if they're not paying attention. Okay, so black mage down, now we'll switch to the healer. Our healer's dying, so I will bind that warrior. And I have my, dang, still didn't matter. So, I mean, sometimes, you bind the healer, probably could have done that a little sooner. But we're not out of it yet. And I think we're going to lose here. Okay, so that's just what happens in PvP. You kill a player if they're able to tank and your player's not. I mean, this is probably has to do with the fact this person has 0 PvP gear, and I probably could have bound the warrior a little bit earlier, but I mean, I can see that Stupid Axe, he doesn't have great equipment, so I'm not really sure what happened. Not to throw that healer under the bus or anything. They're probably pretty new, just because they don't have any PvP gear. But that's what you get when you run with the pickup. It's good if you can find like a healer and a good warrior to queue with, and that way you can. If you have a good healer and a warrior to queue with, you can. Actually, these guys might win. Yeah, I think they managed to kill the healer. Now it's just a Dragoon versus. And here's another tip: if you're getting focused, you don't run blood for blood, and that's how you take extra damage and die. I mean, this is probably not going to work out. Warrior's got a lot of health, and I don't know, he's doing pretty good. This guy does have good PvP gear, but it's just going to be tough versus the warrior because the warrior had more health to start. So it was good job on the drag. I'll commend him. That's PvP. That's how it works. And that's about it for this video. Like I said, try to find a group if you really are serious about it. I've just been kind of queuing slowly as a single player, but you're just going to lose more than you win no matter what if you're queuing solo. And that's it. I hope this video was helpful for you.